What's up, everyone? This is Fuego Steve bringing you another edition of the Fuego Pit featuring Dr. Roto. Today's the Week 9 NFL edition. And as I mentioned, I'm joined again by the one and only Dr. Roto. How you doing this morning?
I'm been up for at least 3 hours already doing fantasy, so I'm good.
Yeah, usually when we do this reverse, we've been recording the podcast on Friday night, and then I end up going on the show. If you missed Dr. Roto's show, of course, you can catch it on SiriusXM on demand, and every Saturday morning and Sunday morning. And of course, Adam Ronis every day, bright and early at 6 a.m., I think, right? 6.
Yeah, I'm sleeping.
When I need to get you guys back, tell Sirius to get back on the Fuego Steve schedule. Like that's like noon, that kind of thing. It's a short slate. It's gonna be a pretty quick one. Doc and I usually talk beforehand. Then he asked me questions on Saturday morning. Today it was reverse, and he asked me immediately about quarterback, and he listed off the ones that I had just wrote up in my article. So let's talk about quarterback. The ones that we had both mentioned were Drew Brees, Alex Smith, Russell Wilson, and then I like the low end Jacoby Brissett play. Talk to me about some quarterbacks this week, Doug.
Yeah, I mean, look, begin Drew Brees, cash game play, lock it in. I can even roll with him in tournaments. He's just far and away the best quarterback of the week. And if I'm thinking about who's going to make value, I think he's certainly that guy. Alex Smith. That's a terrific matchup as well against Dallas in what should be a high-scoring game. So both those games are above 50, according to Vegas. I mean, Wilson, I'm a little down on this week, maybe because of the weather, but I still like him. I think I'm Brees, Smith. Brissett makes a lot of sense, and I'm not against Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston is very contrarian as well.
I just pulled up the optimizer as you were talking, and I see it has Winston number 2, and I mentioned we talked briefly on the radio, and he is going against New Orleans. It's we like the receivers on the Tampa Bay side, so that's not a bad play. I'm gonna back off a little, and yeah, I'm not touching Cam Newton again. Oh God,
ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
I love the Alex Smith play. He's 79 on FanDuel and 65. He's on the higher end, but we don't have a lot of quarterbacks this week. We don't have Brady. We've lost Rodgers. We've lost Watson now. Who we're just going to skip over that news because everybody by now has heard it. Right, you're looking at Drew Brees, Russell Wilson are your highest quarterbacks on the slate. Again, it's what is it, a 10 game on DraftKings, maybe?
Yeah, it's a brutal slate. Let me ask you this. Let's look let's dig deeper. Can I make an argument for Jared Goff? Can I make an argument for Brissett? Is there anybody that I can go deeper than those obvious guys if I want to be contrarian?
Yeah, I was looking at Goff myself. Who else? I was even looking at Kirk Cousins against Seattle. I mean, Watson had a pretty good game this week versus Seattle. I know they're different quarterbacks, but you're going to get Cousins for what, 1%?
Yeah, no, I like Cousins. I do. And I have to tell you, I like Jared Goff as a sneaky play. Even when Jared Goff is bad, he goes for about 240 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and you look. I was looking at his game logs earlier, and he gets those under 10s, but then he pops off the 23. So that's not bad. Talk to me briefly about Brissett before we move on to running back. Do you like Brissett at all?
I think Brissett I like mobile quarterbacks. So first of all, I think you get 30, you get 3 or 4 points. You get another passing touchdown with his legs. I like that. What if he scores a running touchdown? So right there, if he goes 30 yards and a touchdown, I get 9 points. I've got to think that he is a good quarterback. He just hasn't played well the last couple of weeks. Do I think he can get me? I ask myself this quick question. 200 yards passing, a touchdown, and 30 yards rushing. I do. If he does that, right, that's about 17 or 18 points. So in DraftKings at $5,200, I think he could legitimately get me 20 points this week. That's 4X. I could run a naked Brissett.
Yeah, I like it. Because especially we were talking about what whether we use Hilton or Jack Doyle, but I like Brissett more than our optimizer does. So moving on to running back, are you going to pay up for the girlies, the Hunts, Zeke? I know Willie Wells loves Zeke. I like Zeke this week. I mentioned, we keep saying it's the last week you're going to get him. We assume this will be the last week for a while. Leonard Fournette versus the Bengals. And, Mark Ingram's now one of the highest priced at 7,900. Are you going to go high end this week with any of these guys?
Look, the thing is that I'm not going to touch Gurley and I'm not going to touch – I'm not. But, I mean, Hunt is always in play because the 100 total yards. And, look, this could be the last week we see Zeke for 6 weeks. So I agree with Willie. I mean, how do you not put Zeke in your lineup? He's the only guy that's playing this week that can get you 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right. There's no Bell in the slate. Yep.
Yeah, and this type of slate, you pay up and then you try to get smart elsewhere. Do I like Lamar Miller? I did. Do I like Kamara? I do a lot. But look, let me run with Zeke. He's the best player out there, and I'll figure out the rest of my lineup.
Right, that's a good call. You got to like Zeke this week. So if we're putting Zeke and we're going to drop down to, I assume, a lower price number 2 running back. You mentioned Kamara, who I like this week versus Tampa Bay. Lamar Miller, interesting. If you like Brissett, maybe it wouldn't be horrible to pair Miller on the other side, even though he's going to get keyed on a little more. And then we talked about Adrian Peterson, who I like, 5,600 on DraftKings, going up against what they're like the worst rush defense, I believe.
So here's the deal with the Lamar Miller. Okay, when this week started, I loved him. I thought he was the lock of the week because remember, mobile quarterbacks create running lanes, and Miller needs a running lane. Now that there's no running lane, he's going to get the bulk. Bill O'Brien is not going to let Tom Savage throw the ball 35 times. That's never going to happen. So Lamar Miller may get 20 carries. The question is, will he get 20 carries for 54 yards? Can he find a lane to run through? So the bulk will be there for Miller, but will the numbers be there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I heard it could go either way. It's like he's going to be getting exactly what you said. He's going to be getting the touches, and they're going to go up. But is he getting keyed on? It stinks for the receivers, but you also have to think when a quarterback goes down, how does it affect the rest of the team as well? What about AP? You like AP this week?
I like AP, but I don't love AP this week. I like him because, look, he's going to get 20 carries, and they basically said it. They're going to run him to the ground. But if I'm the 49ers, why wouldn't I put 8 guys in the box and make Drew Stanton beat me? Why wouldn't I do that? That just seems to make too much sense. So Drew Stanton's terrible. So I think if I'm the 49ers and I want to win this game, I'm going to try to stop Adrian Peterson. So once again, I think Peterson is a good play, but I don't see the 135-yard 2 touchdown play.
Yeah, and he's expensive on FanDuel. He's up to 6,800. He's only 56 on DraftKings. Let's talk about the other guy running back in that game, Carlos Hyde. He's 5,200 on DraftKings. Would you play Hyde going on the other side of the ball?
I think people are overlooking Hyde. There's no Pierre Garçon, right? So immediately Garçon is out, and that's a big weapon. So you've got C.J. Beathard. Don't you have to lean on a running game? So, I mean, you got Aldrick Robinson, you got Marquise Goodwin, you got Trent Taylor. I get that. But don't you need to establish Hyde to win this game? I think you do. Arizona's run defense, let me get to the numbers here. I think they've been pretty crappy, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, yeah, Cardinals versus the run. Last game against the Rams, 154 yards and a touchdown. They've let up 4 touchdowns this season. 2 of the last 3 weeks, over 100 yards. Maybe Hyde is sneaky.
Yeah. I like that. I think it would be sneaky. I don't think you're going to get high ownership on him. You got Joe Mixon going against Jacksonville. You'll probably get low ownership there.
I love him, by the way. Love him this week.
Okay. All right. I could get behind that. I could get behind Tevin Coleman at 4,700 on DraftKings.
Just a quick thing about Jacksonville, okay? Run defense. Against Tennessee, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. Baltimore, 123 yards. The Jets, 256 yards. The Rams, 133. Any team who can run the football can run against the Jaguars. The question is, will Cincinnati give Joe Mixon the football? If they do, he could have 100 yards this week and be the sneakiest player on the slate.
Great call. Yeah, I mean, they only gave him the ball 11 times last week, 7 the week before. Ooh, 11 for 18 last week. But yeah,
And
you said
nobody's
it.
going to play
Jacksonville's
him, Fuego, because of that.
right. Right, exactly. And Jacksonville has been much better against the pass. We saw that the 5 picks versus Roethlisberger, but Bell still did fine. So that's good call there. And I did want to touch on the 2 running backs on the Ravens, Alex Collins and Buck Allen, 4,600 and 4,300 on DraftKings, who was be getting more the ball, even if they're splitting it. They had decent games. Collins had 18 rushes for 113 yards last week. Do you like either of the Ravens running backs?
I do like Collins. I think he's run the ball very well this year. Buck Allen has been streaky. The one thing that Collins is missing is catching the football. If he could only be on the field to catch the football, he might be a must start in DFS because the run, he's done a great job on first and second down. I think my biggest problem with the Ravens is that Danny Woodhead's going to be coming back soon. So I wouldn't get too emotionally invested into Collins and Allen. They may only have another week or 2 window there. But I do like Collins this week. I think he's interesting and he's very cheap.
Yeah, I do too. Any other running backs you wanted to touch on?
You mentioned Tevin Coleman. Devonta Freeman is not 100%. And I don't like him on grass as much as I do on turf. At 4,700, man, there's something about that play that's calling to me. That's not a bad start.
Yeah, I like Coleman. He had you said mentioned Freeman's banged up. He had 14 carries last week for 82 yards rushing. So Coleman's one of those guys who when he can break one, and when he gets the touches, it can do just as well as Freeman. So be interesting keeping an eye on that Freeman news. He is probable, but if Coleman's being as effective, maybe they keep him in, and give Freeman a break. Moving over to wide receiver, the highest he was priced, obviously, with Watson, 9,200 for DeAndre Hopkins. I can't go there with Savage. And then we drop down to Julio at 78, Mike Evans, AJ Green, all the big dogs. My favorite of them all is Michael Thomas, who's just underneath them at 7,200 on DraftKings. Are you paying up for wide receiver?
Paying up for Michael Thomas. Yeah, I think that he's in a great spot. I think Ted Ginn's in a good spot in that game too. Maybe I'm wrong. I will have a team with Julio Jones. I will have one team in the Millionaire Maker with Julio Jones. He can't be this bad all year. He's too good a player. I just don't want to miss the week that he goes for 212 yards.
Right, at deflated price, like he's only 7,900 on FanDuel, for example. Yeah, you mentioned, I think we talked a little bit about Tyreek Hill earlier today. I could play him, Hill and Bryant, Des Bryant. Willie doesn't mind playing Bryant and Elliott in the same lineup. I tend to shy away from that a little.
Actually, I told 2 weeks ago when I was second overall, the guys who ended up beating me were the ones who had Dak, Zeke, and Dez.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of like the Pittsburgh situation where one dominant running back, one dominant receiver, and the rest of the guys are so I could jumped all the way up to 7,800, which is crazy, which is pretty crazy. He's been a touchdown machine, but only with Watson, so I'm not going there either. Jarvis Landry, is he going to be getting to more targets with no Jay Ajayi?
No, but you have Devontae Parker who's due back, so I like Devontae Parker. I like Devin Funchess this week. I think Funchess is a good play, and I like Deshaun Jackson. I think is the second receiver. I think those guys at 54 and 5,500 are really good buys this week.
Yeah, I agree. What about Tyler Lockett on Seattle? He's 5,500, and our guy Rashard Matthews 5,500 going against Baltimore. Any love for these guys or anyone on the low end?
No, I don't really like those guys, but I will give you a couple of guys I do like a lot. I think with Rashard Matthews, I just don't. Baltimore is very good against a number one receiver, so I don't know whether that's going to be Corey Davis or Matthews, but they're very good against a number one receiver. I think Sammy Watkins is in a really good spot. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's no Janoris Jenkins, and they've had the bye week. And Sean McVay knows they have to get Sammy Watkins started. I think at 4,200, it's a steal on this guy. I also think Ryan Grant at 3,500 with no Jamison Crowder there Why isn't Ryan Grant in play? I mean, couldn't he be the slot receiver there, quite possibly? So if you have Doxson and Pryor, and you've got Grant in the slot, I mean, Seattle does not cover the slot receiver very well, so that might be an interesting play.
Yeah, I tend to play Grant on those short slates, the mini slates, when there's like 2 games. Grant ends up like doing something. Two guys I did skip over that I may have some interest in, and tell me if I'm crazy or if you like them, is Sterling Shepard at 5,900 on FanDuel and Paul Richardson at 5,800 on FanDuel.
Love Sterling Shepard. Love Sterling Shepard. I mean, that guy is just a very good player. Paul Richardson's interesting because, he does nothing within the 20s, but in the goal line, in the red zone, he's great. So, I mean, he easily could catch a touchdown. I think those are sneaky plays. The problem that with Shepard and Richardson is that Richardson's never going to go like 6 for 120. He's going to go like 4 for 50 and 2 touchdowns. So you never get the yardage with him, and that's the only problem.
Right. Yeah, Shepard would have that upside of the more yardage for sure. I agree on your Funches take. I like him with Kelvin Benjamin gone. I'm behind Deshaun Jackson. I'm a fan, and I mentioned he's in New Orleans on the turf. Devontae Parker coming back versus Oakland. Nelson Aguilar, probably not versus Denver's pass.
Parker's interesting, by the way, on FanDuel. If I can get him, like if I could have him as the late night hammer, and I could, let's say I'm within 15 points of winning $1 million, Parker could get you the 15.
Yeah, I like that. I was on him earlier in the year before he got injured, or man, I had so much exposure week he did get injured, which killed me. But let's see, Mohamed Sanu. You mentioned Ted Ginn at 5,700 on FanDuel. Good play. He's taken over Willie Snead as the number 2 there for New Orleans. Pretty sure, or at least statistically. Any other?
No, I'm good. Let's take a look. Well, actually, there's one other receiver I want to take a look at. I don't know what he'll do, if anything, but I want to watch on D.D. Westbrook for Jacksonville. He's the type of guy who can make one big play this week. And he's the kind of guy that people might look at and say, who is this guy? And then all of a sudden, at 117, Andrew Siciliano is saying, D.D. Westbrook catches a 72-yarder for a touchdown. Wouldn't shock me if that was the play this week.
Interesting. That's a good out of the box call there.
Has a lot of speed, and he dominated in preseason. Played at the University of Oklahoma with P. Ryan and Joe Mixon. I'm just throwing it out there that Jacksonville has no deep vertical threat. He's just a guy who's willing to throw the ball.
Marquise Lee, 3,900. Would you go there?
What's that?
Marquise Lee on Jacksonville.
Marquise Lee is Marquise Lee is the guy that he goes to on most progressions. He's the first read, but he's not a big play guy. But I do like Lee a little bit. But I think I like the upside of Westbrook making one. Westbrook is like Ted Ginn. That's the type of player he is, except bigger.
Nice. Moving over to tight end. Zach Ertz, highest price, and Travis Kelce. I think I'm going to probably skip over those two because I like Evan Ingram and I like Jimmy Graham, who are the next 2 highest priced on DraftKings, for example. And then I could even drop down to Cameron Brate, Jack Doyle. A huge game last week. We talked about how those early games, I think I texted you, I was like, Jack Doyle is the highest scoring player, and this was even before he continued.
You did. But something sneaky here, Fuego. Graham is 5,000. Doyle is 4,300. Evan Ingram is 56. He's more than Graham. He didn't even play last week. Am I missing something why Graham and Doyle are so cheap?
It's a good call. It could be. Graham scored last week, right? So, yeah, is it like but he's been playing well. I mean, double-digit points in 5 straight games.
I know, but they're begging you to take him at 5,000.
Yeah, why isn't his price going up? I'll tell you, sneaky play in here. Just under Jack Doyle's Vernon Davis.
Yes, Davis to me is the best play, and because I think that. But Graham, and here's the deal: Graham and Doyle will be higher owned because they're so cheap. Where Davis may be the best play.
Right. You could do a little 2 tight end on DraftKings. Put one of them paired with Vernon Davis. A little different roster construction. And hope they go.
I think this is a 2 tight end week for sure.
It definitely, with these smaller slates, there's no, super cheap. You're glaring us and say you have to play me. So 2 tight ends definitely in play for sure.
Are you sure you like Ingram this week? By the way, the Rams have not let up more than 61 yards to a tight end all year.
I might have to think about it now. Oh, interesting. No, I was unaware of that statistic. So
just don't.
And you're making, and you just mentioned Jimmy Graham's 5,000. On DraftKings, so he's cheaper.
He's cheaper than Ingram.
Yeah, but Ingram has been impressive, though. You got to admit that. That's
dude, I love Ingram. I'm not dissing the player at all, but I'm just saying. Now, here's something interesting. Our optimizer has been really, really interested in. They're trying to give me Ryan Griffin in the worst way.
Tom Savage check down.
That's what they're saying, and the Colts have let up 4 passing touchdowns to the tight end in the last 6 weeks. 4 tight ends have scored. So, I mean, what's Griffin? He's $3,000. So they're saying 10 points. So if he goes like 2 for 20 and a touchdown, boom, there's your 10.
Yeah, I could see that. What about some of the guys right in with Kelvin Benjamin gone, Tyler Higbee, Ben Watson, 2,700 for the Ravens. What about, would you go cheapo any of these other guys? AJ Derby?
Look, if you are a gutsy player, how do you not go Tyler Higbee? The Giants have let up a touchdown to a tight end in every game this year. Every game. Here it is, 1-1-1, 2-1-1-1. I mean, seriously. How do you not roll with Higbee at $2,800 if I'm looking for a flyer at the end? What if he goes 1 for 8 and a touchdown? Did I just not get 7.8 points?
Yeah, exactly. And he's getting like 3 to 8 targets. So if you could get that 8 target game, man, whew, that would be.
Could you imagine? Do you remember the week that Kittle went 8 for 75 and a touchdown? Mm-hmm. This could be the week that Higbee goes like 6 for 50 and a touchdown.
Pair him up with Goff, yeah.
Yeah. A ballsy play to me, and I may do this for just $3 in a dream. Goff, Sammy, Higbee. Boom.
There you go. There's that lineup that's got 1% ownership, and you're winning it all.
Exactly.
Like it. Hands before we head over to defense.
Nope.
Got your high-priced defenses. Jacksonville, 3,800 on DraftKings. They're 53 FanDuel. Houston, Philadelphia Eagles, Titans, who I'm not thrilled with going against Baltimore. Arizona, Seattle. Philly's cheaper on DraftKings than they're the third highest one.
Philly is going to be so chalky because of Brock Osweiler. So chalky, and that's probably good chalk. Yeah. Fuego, I'm the visionary, right? And my vision this week were the Rams. I was locked in on the Rams from early. And I was questioning, was I right? And all of a sudden, when Willie said that he liked the Rams, I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Well, there you go. The Rams, they are third in our optimizer right now, right behind the Cardinals and Eagles, going up against Eli Manning. And the Giants offense is, without Odell Beckham, they're back to being putrid.
Well, I mean, look, if they can sack Eli 4 times, maybe get a pick, and then who knows, their special teams is pretty clever. I don't think the Rams are a bad start off the bye week.
No, I agree. They're a little more 4,800 on FanDuel, a little better 31 on DraftKings. Some other teams, I don't mind. San Francisco defense going against Arizona, or even the other way, Arizona against San Francisco, but San Francisco's cheaper. And then drop down to Atlanta versus Cam Newton. I could handle that. And I didn't want to talk about the Colts. I think they're going to be popular. They are min price, only $2,000 on DraftKings. They're only $4,000 on FanDuel. They were expected to go up against Deshaun Watson and the high-powered Houston offense, and now all of a sudden they're going up against Tom Savage, who we saw Jacksonville just beat him down week 1. Any love for these Colts?
Yeah, I thought your 49er call was very interesting because I think the Cardinals are going to lose this week. And I thought your Colts play was interesting because you know what? For $2,000, if they sack Savage 3 times and get 1 pick or 1 fumble, they give you your money. And then you can spend your money on Zeke Elliott or getting Des Bryant or getting Drew Brees. So look, if defense is such a crapshoot that, and I think it matters so much less on DraftKings, that to save the money on DraftKings might be well worth it.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, we can always sort of predict sacks, but not even. Okay, but are those sacks going to turn into fumbles? Or sacks going to turn into a pick six? So, need those defensive touchdowns. You know, it's funny. We've had all these defensive touchdowns. It feels like every week we're getting big ones. And last week we weren't. And then all of a sudden it was like 2 teams just boom, boom, defensive touchdowns. And you can't predict them. It's Aaron Rodgers looks at a guy, looks the wrong way, throws it right into the guy, goes back 80 yards. So even Aaron Rodgers throws the pick sixes that you just can't predict when they're going to happen.
No, exactly. So, I mean, how could you ever trust what a defense does?
Right. And that's why I always like to pay down if I can. If there's a high price defense that's staring me in the face that I think you have to play, then I'll do it. But I like paying down because that's why I like paying down for kicker when I can, even though, I think kicker's more predictable than defense is. You can predict some kickers in a high scoring game, on turf, in good weather, and that's a little more predictable.
Or offenses who stall. I mean, why is Ryan Suckup so good? Because they can't get in the end zone. So he's getting 4 field goals a week.
Yep. Exactly. So, I tell you, that's one thing, when you play certain sites, I think like Play Draft or whatever, you don't have to pick the kicker or defense is interesting. Let's see. All right. So we always like to make a kicker picker too. Any kickers you want to throw out there? I've got Blair Walsh.
I think I'm going Justin Tucker this week. That I can get the best kicker in football under 5K. I'll take a shot and roll with him.
Suck up on the other side, maybe?
Yeah,
both same price.
I have no problem with that. Those kickers make the most sense because that looks like a field goal game to me. So either way makes sense. It may be a little chalky, but not bad chalk.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that. I think you could go down to Blair Walsh at 47. Who's my min price kicker of the week? I'm going to go Cody Parkey, 4,500.
Really?
There's
never a good day to go Cody Parkey.
Robbie Gould.
I like Robbie Gould. And you know who played in, one of the revenge narrative? Phil Dawson used to play for the 49ers.
Oh, I don't know how kicker revenge works, but there you go. Yeah, good as gold. 4,500 Sampan versus Arizona, especially if you think the defenses could do something in that game. And you mentioned it a few weeks ago, either on the radio or on the pod, I can't recall, about pairing your kicker with your defense. And I've seen that in a lot of winning lineups and a lot of professional lineups. I've seen that more and more.
Yeah,
so
that's the newest rage, dude. That's the newest thing.
It kind of makes sense. If your defense is playing well and like you're winning, you're not going to be trying to push the ball down the field. So you get in a field goal range, you'll settle for that field goal. Your defense is playing well. Kind of a good correlation there.
Look, you could do Suck Up in the Titans, and I wouldn't hate it. You could do Zerline in the Rams. I wouldn't hate it.
No, for sure. Blair Walsh, Seattle defense could do that.
I wouldn't hate it either. Yeah, I think that's probably a very conservative but shrewd move.
Yeah. Let's see. That's about it. Any final thoughts? It's a short one this week, but we have this short amount of games, and there's just not a lot of plays that stick out to me. We had talked earlier in the week how I know I'm playing a little light this weekend, just because there's nothing sticking out to me like, wow, like, there's weekends where you feel like, oh my God, I got to get more lineups in. No,
honestly, here I'm like fighting to get 3 lineups in. I think I'm going to be very, very light this week. I'm going to pick three lineups and just do that and roll with them. There's not a lot to choose from. And when there's only 3 or 4 good quarterbacks, everybody's going to be on them. So you're going to have to there's going to be differentiation somewhere. So I'm travel light this week.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right. Once again for Dr. Rowe, this is Fuego Steve. Good luck this week. Hit us up in NFL chat on the Scout forums. You can DM me on Twitter, Fuego_Steve. Dr. Roto, y'all know where you can find him and listen to him on SiriusXM tomorrow morning, Sunday, for your last minute news. All right. Thanks a lot, Doc. Appreciate it.
Later, Fuego. Good luck.
Thank you.